I got it. I said, okay, wow, these are real assets that were created by hard work by other people that I had to buy in order to participate in this game where I could then earn tokens that are now exchangeable on the blockchain for fiat currency if I wish. And I know this is changing economies in places like the Philippines where people are now turning this into a living. People are now allowing people to rent these assets and play this for them. And I'm starting to understand what you're creating with Sandbox and many of your other companies as well, where these things are no longer virtual environments. They border right back into the physical, and they really are a clear demonstrator that the metaverse is here to stay, and it's really part of who we are as humans. Tell me just your thoughts on this, and if I'm getting any of that stuff right, when it comes to seeing what these games do as far as utility.
Yeah, first of all, you get it completely right, and I think we're very fortunate to have been sort of the lead investor of Axie Infinity, Sky Mavis, back in 2019, and I got to tell you, that was a difficult raise. Everyone was, back then, sort of Bitcoin itself was, not doing so well, so the world was fleeing fungible tokens, and then here we are trying to sort of, market a non-fungible version of that. You can imagine how much fun that was. But the thing is, the thing that's fascinating about when you think about what happened in the Philippines with Axie Infinity, it didn't happen because Axie set up an office, the Sky Mavis team set up an office and did something there and built it out. It happened because what ultimately became YGG, right? Basically set up this experiment independent of Axie and just said, hey, let's do this. We own these Axies, we're breeding them. Let's use this as a way for people to actually sort of survive through COVID and make an income. And then they saw it work. And it's an example of this open composability that can take place without the permission of the platform. Sky Mavis is a Vietnamese-based company. They, obviously have empathy for what happens in the region, but they don't know exactly what's happening in the Philippines. And, why did this same phenomenon not happen in the Philippines, in Vietnam, where they're based versus Philippines? Who knows, right? But it just happened somewhere else, far away from their home, from a third party who was a friend of the company, but obviously not working for them, and then ended up building this construct that now has basically taken over the world in terms of potential of what a guild really means, which is not actually just playing inside a game to have membership, but playing inside a game to actually make income and a living, right? And that basically is an example of that third-party composability. And that's the power of it, because new people and new innovations will likely emerge because of the fact that you have asset ownership on this one. But you're completely right in terms of that this will completely change and has already changed many aspects of where the future of work is going to go. When you think of, we think this is a great sort of solution to many of the problems we're going to see in the future, because honestly speaking, the only reason why a lot of jobs exist in the physical world is because of politics, because they need to maintain them. Because if we actually were honest about it, probably you don't need, truck drivers anymore, right? Probably don't need a lot of people in agriculture the way you have to do. Probably don't need a lot of people manufacturing the kind of things they're manufacturing, because in fact, robots can do a better job. And this has been one of the big issues. And there's one argument that says, oh my goodness, human society is going to end up being useless and we have to find a solution. Okay, universal basic income, right? That's kind of one construct, which we're not fans of. And then actually with this one, where this construct of your time, your creativity, and your data, meaning that you are the creators of your own equity every single day, right? Actually, that means that we're getting towards an age that we can describe as a universal basic equity, because we're actually the creators of our own equity, depending on how we engage. And for that, we get paid for. Now, what is Facebook, for instance, without its users? Nothing. And yet here we are giving our time for free. Actually, they should be paying us for our time, right? Because we make them sort of wealthy. In traditional games, the conversion rate is about 1.5 to 3% industry averages, which means 97 or more percent don't pay a dime. But the 1.5 to 3% would only pay because of the 97% playing with them, right? If they're not there, then I don't have the incentive to pay because I don't have the competition dynamics and all that kind of stuff, right? And so again, that 97% is essentially there playing the games for free when all the value ought to be shared across the network. And that is what play to earn does. Play to earn simply delivers the value that was already inherent from an economic substance perspective in the system and unlocks it, which is what tokens and blockchain do to all industries, right? It's not just specifically in gaming, but it just happens to be a very effective one, because actually billions of hours are spent, people playing games that is the equivalent of free labor, and that has value that is not fairly distributed to the people who play them. Whether it's worth 10 cents, $1, $10, $100, that's a relative question. That is dependent on the economy and the value of the game. But it is still value that is generated. And that's the issue, right? Players play for free because they're having fun and because they're getting social status, and don't think of it as something that is essentially worse than, slave labor, because at least maybe even slaves get paid something. So that's kind of where this is. And once people realize this, why would they ever play a game where they don't have ownership and where their time is never rewarded? I don't think there's any going back, which is why this is a very big threat to the traditional gaming industry, which is why, on one hand, our shareholders like Ubisoft came into our last round because they're fascinated by this and they think this is the future and they're willing to sort of go deeper in this. But you have other ones who are completely rejecting it because they're threatened by it. Steam banned everything related to NFTs and blockchain, literally just I think a week or two ago, right? That's an interesting reaction. They're citing all sorts of reasons, but these are red herrings. Actually, I think Steam itself understands what's going on because they're smart too, and realize that actually they could completely change the gaming industry and actually completely dismantle the Steam business model, and that would be a threat.